Hello and welcome to Foreign Desk on Benue Television. I am Susan Ayo. The headlines. UN says Ethiopian landslides death toll rises to 257. Shooting of broadcasting regulator boss shocks Zambians. Plus, 10 people drowned in Panama River in migration risks escalate. Now the news in details. Deaths caused by landslides in the Ethiopian have risen to 257, but the final death toll is expected to be 500, according to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA. The UN agency released the figures on Thursday after the landslide in the mountainous Gofa zone in southern Ethiopia, the first triggered by heavy rains on Monday, the second engulfing those who had gathered to rescue people. The reverse death toll is an increase of 28 on figures provided by Ethiopia's National Disaster Risk Management Commission on Tuesday. Hundreds of people combined through Red Amod at the scene of the disaster in the Kencho Sancha locality, searching for survivors of the deadliest landslide recorded in Africa's second most populous country. The flooding and landslides occurred even as other parts of the country are facing severe droughts, which has prompted traditional herding communities to explore alternative food production methods. The UN reports that millions of people in the country face malnutrition due to climate-related challenges. Police are investigating the abduction and murder of Zambia's newly appointed broadcasting regulator chief. Buntila Moleya's body was discovered on the outskirts of the capital, Lusaka, on Wednesday with gunshot wounds. His death was shocked people, especially as the motive is unknown and as gunmen violence is not common in the southern African nation. Police believe that the Director General of the Independent Broadcasting Authority, IBA, was kidnapped after being work on Tuesday. The IBA is responsible for licensing standards and enforcing compliance. When Mr. Moleya failed to return home on Tuesday night, his family alerted the police and began to search for him. The police said his body was discovered by the member of the public as he was on his way to work. The bullets carried cartridge were also found on the scene. Mr. Moleya took over the IBA in May from the veteran journalist who had headed the authority for 10 years. "25 migrants have been killed in a shipwreck off the coast of Mauritania, with dozens missing. The incident took place near the capital of Nouakchott. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, said that more than 190 people were still missing, that a rescue operation was underway to recover people. According to Coastland Commander, the Mauritanian Coast Guard rescued 103 migrants and recovered 25 bodies. The IOM said around 300 people had boarded a wooden pirogue boat in Gambia and spent 7 days at sea before the boat capsized on 22nd July. 15 were confirmed dead when the Coast Guard arrived, while 10 others were admitted to hospital for urgent medical care. Ibasar, a fishmonger at the North Chatham fish market, told the newsmen that strong winds in the past 2 days had moved the bodies closer to the shore. Mr. Sar said that around 30 bodies being collected from the beach. The disaster follows a similar incident on 5th July when Mauritanian Coast Guards recovered the bodies of 89 migrants from a capsized boat. In April, the EU gave Mauritania £210 million in aid, almost £60 million of which is earmarked for the fight against undocumented migration to Europe. You're watching Foreign Desk on Benue Television. Let's take a quick break. Don't go away. Glad to have you back. Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed Thursday to crush anybody who tries to divide Russian society as he hailed the effectiveness and unwavering loyalty of his country's powerful law enforcement agency. Putin has escalated a decade-long crackdown on civil society, independent media and opposition amid his military offensive in Ukraine, with dissent and criticisms of the Kremlin outlawed and punishable by years-long prison sentences. Putin was marking Russia's Investigation Officer Day and paid tribute to various Russian law enforcement agencies, including the Investigative Committee and the FSB Security Services, the successor of the Soviet-era KGB. Critics of the Kremlin says Russians focus on investigating and prosecuting its domestic political opponents, and rivals have left it blind to genuine security threats. In March, armed gunmen killed more than 140 at Moscow concert hall in countries amidst deadly terror attack in almost 2 decades. The incident came just days after warning from Western intelligence agencies that Putin publicly rejected as blackmail and an attempt to destabilize their society. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility, but Putin and other officials tried to link the massacre to Ukraine without providing any evidence. Almost all of Putin's main opponents are in jail or have fled into exile. The United Kingdom's new Labour government faces a key test of its foreign policy towards Gaza ahead of a deadline for a potential legal challenge against arrest warrant into the International Criminal Court, ICC, is seeking for Israel's top leaders. In May, ICC prosecutor Karim Khan applied for arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for alleged war crime committed during Israel's war on the Gaza Strip. He also sought warrants for 3 leaders of the Palestinian group Hamas over alleged war crimes committed during the October 7 attack on southern Israel. The UK has not issued a formal challenge to the arrest warrants yet. The former Conservative government had only managed to gain court approval to submit arguments before the July 4th UK elections, which the Conservatives lost, leaving the challenge up in the air. The ICC first gave the UK government time until July 12 to file a legal opinion. That was then extended to July 26. Since winning a landslide victory 3 weeks ago, the Labour Party and its new government have announced a series of shifts from the policies of the previous administration. It has, among other things, scrapped a plan to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda and announced a 40-bill agenda sitting out the next 5 years in government. Panamanian border police say 10 people have drowned in a river near Panama's border with Colombia as the rainy season increases the risks migrant and asylum seekers face along popular migrant route. The bodies were found late on Wednesday in riverside tributes near the remote community of Querétaro. The National Border Service, known as Senafront, the village lies in the Caribbean Sea and is part of the Ghana-Yola Automobiles Indigenous Territory. Senafront did not specify the nationalities of the people who drowned or whether they had crossed into Panama through the Darien Gap jungle or by boat. Connecting South and Central America, the Darien Gap is a dangerous route reef with natural hazards including insects, snakes, and unpredictable terrain. Despite those dangers, it has become a popular route for migrants and asylum seekers fleeing violence, socio-economic crisis, and other hardship in their home countries. More than 520,000 migrants and asylum seekers crossed the Darien Gap last year, which is more than double the total from 2022, according to figures from Panama's government. We'll take more news after this break. Stay with us. Glad to have you back on Foreign Desk. Officials said buildings in the Canadian tourist town of Jasper have been burning after wildfire forced 25,000 people to evacuate the area on 6 Tuesday. According to park officials, the blaze has spread through Jasper National Park, causing significant loss within the town. Hundreds of wildfires have sparked in the western province of Alberta and British Columbia, BC, according to BC Wildfire Service. The region has been hit by more than 58,000 lightning strikes within the last week, sparking new blazes after a 3-week heat wave. Around 1,900 Alberta firefighters have been deployed, assisted by personnel from Alaska and Australia, and are working to save local infrastructure. This includes the Trans Mountain Pipeline, a Canadian government-owned pipeline that runs through Jasper National Park. As of Wednesday, it was still operating, with sprinklers being used to protect it. There had been more than 400 fires recorded in British Columbia and 176 in the neighboring province of Alberta. More than 30 million people in the U.S. have been affected by heat warnings since early July. According to National Weather Service, the warnings are in place in California, Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington states. U.S. President Joe Biden has told Americans in a televised address that he decided to end his faltering re-election campaign in a bid to save U.S. democracy. Mr. Biden, 81, said he felt his record as president merited a second term, but nothing can come in the way of saving American democracy. He said he endorsed U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris to unite their fellow Democrats and the country. The White House speech marked his first public appearance since the left race on 21 July, paving the way for Ms. Harris to run for the party's nomination. Pressure has been building on him from colleagues and donors to step aside over doubts about his ability to serve another term following a disastrous debate with Republican Donald Trump. It was notable that he was not addressed how his campaign unraveled and the fact that defeat to Mr. Trump looked more likely the longer he resisted calls for him to quit. Opinion polls so far suggest Ms. Harris bounce since she took over Mr. Biden's mantle, making it a tight race between her and the former president if she wins the nomination, which looks likely. Germany's largest airport in Frankfurt was forced to suspend arrivals and departures after a protest by climate activists who blocked runways by gluing themselves to the tarmac. Frankfurt Airport, one of the country's busiest airports and a major international hub, on Thursday advised passengers to check the status of their flights due to the ongoing demonstration. While operations resumed and all 4 runways were operational, a few hours later, an airport spokesperson said about 140 flights had been cancelled of 1,400 planned. The climate activist group Lettered Generation, the last generation, which has orchestrated the action, said in a statement that 6 of its members used pincers to cut up openings in the airport wire fence before making their way by foot, with bicycles and skateboards to different points around the runways. Protesters had held banners on the tarmac that read "All Skills." German Interior Minister Nancy Faeser, whose ministry wants to punish unauthorized airfield access with up to 2 years in prison, called the demonstration dangerous, dumb and criminal. The group, which wants the German government to pursue a global agreement to exit oil, gas and coal by 2030, has listed several countries across Europe and North America where similar disruptions are planned. Activist Ronja Kyoka told reporters that Wednesday's protest was just the beginning and declined to answer whether any action was planned for the Paris Olympic 2024, which begins on Friday. Let's now join Loretta Oko for weather reports.
A beautiful Friday to you out there, and here is the weather report for Friday. Now let's quickly look at the weather here in Benue State. In Makudi, Otupo, Boko, Katsina, the atmosphere will be cloudy with heavy rainfall all through the day, with temperatures varying between 26 degrees Celsius low and 30 degrees Celsius high. Humidity of 86% with 72% possibility of precipitation. We also anticipate similar weather conditions in the Federal Capital Territory, with temperature low around 22 degrees Celsius and high around 29 degrees Celsius, while in Sokoto State, we anticipate rainfall with thunderstorms all through the day, with temperatures low around 22 degrees Celsius and high around 30 degrees Celsius. And that's it from here. Join us again for another weather report. I am Loretta Oko.
Thank you, Loretta, for that report. With that, we've come to the end of our bulletin this afternoon. Before we go, a recap of the top stories. UN said Ethiopian landslide death toll rises to 257. Shooting of broadcasting regulator bus shocked Zambians. Plus, 10 people drowned in Panama's river as migration risks escalate. Thanks for being part of Foreign Desk on Benue Television. I am Susan Ayo. Remain blessed.